Hey guys, this is James Shanklin, and this is my lesson for 8th grade English Language Arts, and it's called Dr. King, Miss Giovanni, and Today. In this lesson, I'll be going over a pre-reading strategy, but I'm going to go over, do a brief summary real quick of the actual lesson that the kids will be learning in this lesson. In this lesson, students will be reading the speech by Dr. Martin Luther King, the famous I Have a Dream speech. They'll be examining the tone and the language and applying it to the time period, but also eventually in this lesson, they'll be writing a personal essay based on the question, focusing on whether or not they feel the I Have a Dream speech is relevant to today's society. So, along with the I Have a Dream speech, students will also be reading the poem by Miss Nikki Giovanni titled The Funeral of Martin Luther King Jr. They'll also be examining the language within this piece and applying it to their personal essay. So, they'll really just be using the Nikki Giovanni poem as a source. And so, for the pre-reading of the I Have a Dream speech, students will be using this anticipation guide. This anticipation guide is pretty straightforward. So on the left side, students will be, before the reading of the I Have a Dream speech, students will go over these 5 questions here. The 1963 I Have a Dream speech is a simple text that drew its power mostly from a passionate delivery. Dr. King's speech is a call for social change at any cost and by any means. And they'll be reading these 5 questions and agreeing or disagreeing based on their prior knowledge of the speech itself or the time period or Dr. King himself, from anything they know, just based on their basic prior knowledge of the subject. So they'll put agree or disagree in each box for each question. They could put notes at the bottom for any thoughts that they may have before the reading. And then we'll read as a class a hard copy of the I Have a Dream speech. After we're done reading this, we'll have a small discussion about it, and then students will go to the right side of this anticipation guide, which is the post-reading strategy, and they'll put in whether or not they still agree or disagree on the same 5 questions. The only difference with this side is the evidence box. Students will cite evidence explaining why they've kept the same stance before reading the piece, or why they disagree. They'll also be using the Nikki Giovanni poem, The Funeral of Martin Luther King Jr., as a source. So they'll be able to cite the poem or the speech and place it in the evidence explaining why they've agreed or disagreed after reading. So then after this, we will listen to the audio of the I Have a Dream speech so students can get an idea of the tone in which Dr. Martin Luther King spoke during the I Have a Dream speech. And we will go back to the after reading, post reading strategy of this guide and see if the students still feel the same way, and they can add extra notes at the bottom explaining why they've kept their stance the same even after listening to the actual audio of the speech. So this anticipation guide will hopefully help build students' comprehension of the speech itself and of the time period. Listening to the audio will hopefully also help them understand the time period as well and the tone in which Dr. King spoke. So that is the lesson. This is the strategy, and that's it, guys. Thanks for listening.